Thanks, everyone. It's great to be here. We had a very interesting discussion, and we started off hearing from Daniel a fascinating length about the origins of the coronavirus epidemic, and then we sort of switched to having 3 minutes each on what we thought the best answer was to this question at the top: how can we ensure food production is not increasing our climate risk and biodiversity loss? And I've built in actually Phil's comment, at the beginning of his assessment of this, because what we need to do is not just not increase it; we need to actually decrease the risks of to the climate by the way we conduct our agriculture, and decrease the extent of biodiversity loss. So so my view was echoed much of what we've heard already, and sharing is actually going to exacerbate the problem. We need to have high-intensity agriculture where we have agriculture, at least for quite a lot of it, using every tool in the toolbox. And we almost certainly need to reduce meat consumption. But this is, as soon as you start thinking through any approach that involves policy, then all sorts of complications arise. So we spent a lot of time discussing the kind of problems that might arise in implementing a set of solutions that address this challenge. So Pauline pointed out that you can have a great policy in one country, but if you have international trade where your market gets flooded by products with a different standard, then you'll undo all that good, and in fact, you'll drive your own producers into economic difficulty. So you've got to actually have coordination with respect to trade. I hope I'm representing your argument adequately. And this led on to sort of the economic dimension of it. You need to actually have proper pricing of all of the components of the supply chain, the water, for example, and if you have trade between countries, you're going to have essentially be importing or moving between country boundaries virtual water if you've got, I don't know, chrysanthemums produced in Kenya. You're building into the product a resource that could have been used for something else in the country of origin. Daniel was very mindful of the need to never ignore the extent to which infectious disease can ambush your best efforts. Of course, we're well aware of that in humans, but also the African swine fever epidemic in China is having huge knock-on effects in terms of the price of pork and the price of feedstuffs for pork. And he also felt that in order to address this food production while mitigating risks to the climate and biodiversity, we need intercropping more investigated and deployed where it works, and also buffer zones between wherever we have agriculture and wherever we have something else, such as wildlife, because otherwise you can have a greater risk of infectious disease emerging from wildlife into your domestic animal population or even humans. So Anne put it from the NSF perspective, and felt that we need a lot more programs that bring together the basic science with deployment of solutions or investigation of solutions out in the field. And implicit in that is that if you can't just leave it to the private sector to achieve that optimal deployment of all the new technologies or new insights that emerge from basic science. Phil is sort of the most sophisticated commentator in our group on agronomy, I'd say, and was advocating an important role for advanced cropping systems that would take us to net negative greenhouse gas emissions, and appropriate bioenergy crops on lands that are classified as degraded lands. I'm not sure how tight a category that is. If this is land that it's just not as profitable as it used to be to produce food. But anyway, there's a lot of land that's not very energetically or intensively farmed. That it would make sense to devote perennials to growing into for which there could be some harvesting, but also accumulation of carbon in the soil and in above ground biomass. And we need ecosystem service payments to promote this activity by farmers. We talked quite a bit about communication and how it's the sort of techniques that Andrew referred to, whereby you can, just by changing the order in which meals are put in front of people, you can actually have quite substantial influence in the proportion of people's diets that are meat versus plant-based foods. And of course, if this is really successful, then there could be losers in the economic space. Small-scale livestock farmers might find the price of meat slumping, and there needs to be mitigating action on the part of policymakers to address the difficulties posed by any major shift in agriculture that it renders them losers and favors other sectors. So I'd like to think I've captured most of what we discussed, but I'm open to my colleagues adding whatever they think is conspicuous by its absence. Anne.
I would just like to change a word.
Okay.
And that is to change need for partnerships, new partnerships from policies in the section
yes,
of it.
Thank you. That's right. That was a word you emphasized. So partnerships between, let's say, research agencies and
whatever, not public, private, all of the different opportunities for getting answers.
Thanks.